Hey guys, real quick before we get started with the review, just want to say my condolences to the family and friends of the actress Annie Wershing. She played Tess in The Last of Us. She's the actual voice actress, and she sadly passed away from cancer at the age of 45. Super sad to hear, man. Definitely the gaming community mourns, and sad, honestly. Last thing to be expecting, man, especially when The Last of Us fans, are happy to actually have a show of the video game that, is pretty high quality from HBO Max. And yeah, just apparently there's a GoFundMe that's been set up to support her family. Yeah, man, hearing someone passing away at 45, it's never a good thing. So young and but will never be forgotten. Her work uh helps her live on. So yeah, guys, just wanted to mention that real quick. Hey guys, welcome back to the Cool Classic Kids Show, and going to do a spoiler review of The Last of Us Episode 3, titled Long, Long Time. So, spoils if you haven't watched it, go watch it. If you haven't played the game, spoilers, just fair warning. Um, Honestly, I think this is going to be a pretty quick review because, to be completely honest with you, there just doesn't really feel like there's much here to break down and discuss. This episode is like an hour and 15 minutes long, and I just feel like there's no substance. The plot has about one, two, three, four, five different time periods. So we're looking at 2003, 2007, 2010, 2013, and 2023. And a lot of this is just like a lot of jumping around. And I guess, in a sense, the title kind of, you know, is true. Long, long time, which is based off a Linda Ronstadt song, one that kind of gets butchered in this episode. Sadly, love Linda Ronstadt. I love a lot of old school music, especially of the hippie variety. So yeah, didn't really appreciate that too much. Sadly, this is definitely a Bill episode. It starts off with Joel and Ellie, and this is after the previous episode in which Tess, dies, unfortunately, and they're just trying to gather themselves. Now, one thing I really did like about this episode was the reference to Mortal Kombat 2, and Ellie, says that one of her friends, knew everything about the game, and she pointed out Melina for having pointy, teeth, and basically what Melina does. And I'm a huge Melina fan in Mortal Kombat, so I thought that was really cool. A really good character for her to have referenced, in my personal opinion, but that's sort of like me subjectively swooning because Mortal Kombat 2, man. Um, Joel just feels kind of like just going through the motions. Obviously, his girl just died, and I totally get that. Honestly, Pedro Pascal, I'm not really warming up to him as Joel. Hopefully things do change as Ellie and Joel kind of find their way to loving and appreciating each other. But as for Ellie, she just is getting a lot more annoying, unfortunately, and given how some of the contents of this episode play out, I feel like there's a lot of missed opportunities to get us as the viewer to like Ellie. And, we go through just Ellie saying a lot of smug shit. Pretty much everything that comes out of her mouth is smug. And to be fair, that's accurate. But I just feel like there should be, choice moments for that. That's more of just me personally. You may love Ellie, that's cool. To be fair, I think she definitely does have some moments that I give like, a subtle chuckle to, which is cool. I could appreciate that. But I just feel as though she's a little bit extra. And, they do this thing where it just feels like kind of a reach in order to get to basically a flashback. And up until this episode, the flashback scenes have been, actually interesting and add to a more fulfilled narrative of how we got here. Now, unfortunately, with this episode, like I said, it feels like a stretch where it doesn't really add anything to the narrative, but they just try to slickly, make things kind of line up together in order to talk about Bill's past and go through Bill's life, which goes from literally multiple years and just feels not really structured well. Honestly, I think the writing for this episode it just isn't good. Like there's just not there's like subtle things that are, interesting about Bill. Obviously how he meets Frank, which is very interesting. If you played the video game, you know that you find out through, reading. One of my friends didn't read and just now discovered that apparently that Bill is gay because, he didn't read while playing the video game, but it was interesting to find out how Bill and Frank met each other. I thought that was really, really good addition. But then it kind of just goes through a lot of this unnecessary storytelling, which makes what, in terms of what is presented, what could have been like a 30-minute episode at most, into a hour and 15-minute episode. That's really, really kind of just a waste of my time, unfortunately. And we go through, them blooming a relationship together. And the main takeaway, I think that the writers and, the people behind this, especially Neil Druckmann, it's weird that Frank kind of reminded me and some of my friends of Neil Druckmann. I don't know if that was deliberate, but the thing that they wanted to communicate is that old dusty cheeks get clapped this episode. So I feel as though they definitely wanted to hammer that home, and they did a good job of that. Congratulations, guys, on that front. Um, so yeah, it really concentrates on their relationship and leads up to how things unfortunately end for the two. Um, Frank gets very, very sick, and this is the really unfortunate reality of this. There's so much that they could have done that's so much more interesting, so much that would make it feel like previous episodes instead of this kind of just feeling like its own thing entirely. It doesn't quite fit in my personal opinion. I think I think that's kind of objective, admittedly, subjective, excuse me, admittedly. So I mean, if you don't feel that way, that's completely fine. But to me, yeah, this just feels like out of place. And what really messes up this entire episode and makes it useless is the fact that we get all this backstory to Bill just for, unfortunately, Joel and Ellie to find out that he's been dead the whole time. And it really is unfortunate because in the video game, Ellie and Bill have some moments that really help us gravitate to Ellie as a character, and this show really misses out on that. It really would have been helpful. Like we missed out on the little banter, the dirty magazine scene with Ellie. Just a lot of key things, man, that as a fan of the franchise, it kind of hurts. We come across a bloater in the game, and honestly, it would have been nice to have had a moment in which both Bill and Joel, kind of come to terms together that they lost someone that they truly love, being Tess and Frank. And it really feels like wasted potential here, in my personal opinion. Didn't really like it. The one highlight of, honestly, the whole series thus far, but really this episode, honestly, is the cinematography. There's some really great cinematography here, especially in the outdoors. I think is amazing. I also really, really love the music selection from Bill. I think that he has great music taste. Really appreciated that this episode. Those are like the key highlights, as well as the Mortal Kombat 2 reference. Um, yeah, I just feel as though, sadly, there's nothing necessarily better here than in the video game itself. Would have liked to have seen a bit of action overall. Like I said, this episode just feels like its own thing entirely. I don't really understand what the writers and directors are getting at in terms of trying to make this feel as though it's a part of the show. I feel as though a lot of the segments between Frank and Bill, though interesting, ultimately pointless in the grand scheme of things, you could have definitely, it would have been a better episode and so much better to the narrative if maybe if we would have gotten a flashback of how, Frank and Bill met, and just have a more brief relationship between the two that sort of, kind of sums it up in a nice way, and then just have Bill, not die before we come across Joel and Ellie, meeting Bill. That just, yeah, that doesn't sit right. It just doesn't work for me, man. Uh, Overall, ultimately, the ending of the episode, really the important part, and probably the only, like, honestly, legitimately, the only important thing is that, um, well, two important things. First off, Joel and Ellie take a shower so they don't look like they smell. So that's a big plus right there. That's honestly, in my opinion, the most important part. But the second most important part is that Joel's able to, now has a vehicle, given he took Bill's, and now he can go meet up with his brother in, I believe, Wyoming. So that's a big plus. Also, huge huge selection of armory there, which is really, really great in its own right. So that's the key thing, which is, literally last 10 minutes of the episode. So yeah, honestly, this is just a huge waste of time for the most part. Uh, there's like maybe a 25 to 30-minute episode here that contains important context, and everything else is honestly just throwaway. I really hope it doesn't continue on this path, because the last thing I want to do is feel like you're wasting my time. This is a significant downgrade of quality in comparison to episode 1 and 2. Though I do have my gripes with those first two episodes, I think they are just much better in the grand scheme of things, in terms of respecting one's time and actually, sticking to what's important. So yeah, guys, let me know what you think of episode 3. If you can, like the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel. Follow me over on Twitch or Twitter if you want to continue the conversation. And guys, well, I'll be instead, I'm out. Peace.